permission to speak. Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you. Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend.
Welcome to episode 461 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, August 22nd, 2024, in the evening. Coming to you from Nomergon, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From Northrend, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Kresh, Beef Squatch, David P., Walu, Jeremy T., Bottlecaps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, Grizzly Bear, Tyler Knife, and SSJ5 Goku. And by our patrons of the week, Livdera and Incredible Plum. You can go to patreon.com/coinconcede to get perks like a thank you at the top of the show, early access to new episodes, one-on-one coaching sessions, and help support the show in the process. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. So, Life and Ladder. I gotta admit, apart from watching some of the Masters Tour, I have not been doing a lot of Hearthstone stuff. I did start playing some Wild because of the previously upcoming and now live Tavern Brawl, the Heroic Tavern Brawl. Haven't done any Heroic Tavern Brawl runs yet because I'm not confident in what to play. I guess I should look at what some folks are playing and determine from there. I mostly played a quest mage, Giants kind of variant that I built myself. Don't know how it really compares, but I was doing pretty well with it. I will have to see how it goes into sort of more meta stuff. Wild is a crazy place. There's hyper aggro and also Reno decks. So yeah, but it was pretty cool getting to do the Zarimi thing but mage. And there's a considerable number of giants that you can play. There's the one that's play spells that didn't start in your deck to reduce it. There's the one that just reduces on spells, period. And then there's the new one that gets reduced by 2 every time you activate a location. And so I, of course, have the Tide Pool. Wait, is that what they're called? I forget. But the new mage location. And I can't decide whether I want 1 or 2 of the old mage location because it sticks around too long. I need the board space.
You need giants.
The new one, you kind of blow through it very quickly, right? Because it reopens whenever you cast a spell, so you just kind of almost immediately it's gone. But the old one, it takes 6 turns or 5 turns to actually make it go away. And if you don't have it on curve, you have lost a space on your field because the game will end before it goes away. But that's been pretty fun adapting that. We'll see if I actually end up taking it into the Heroic Tavern Brawl. Otherwise, I've just been consuming copious amounts of D&D content because the new player's handbook is coming out imminently. I have a campaign that I'm DMing and getting ready for, and I do the same thing with D&D that I do in Hearthstone, except there's it's not like I can just hop into a campaign to try out the thing. It's pretty rough, actually. Similar to my deck building Hearthstone, except Hearthstone I can just try the decks. With D&D, it's I have all these cool build ideas, and I can make the builds, and then they just sit there because
Yep.
What am I gonna do?
This is my problem with commander decks at the moment, because you can kind of play test them, but not really. And I end up spending a lot of money and then building it and then finding out that some of those cards that I bought, I don't actually need in the deck. And that's something that I would like to get better at. And I can print proxies, but I don't. And so, yeah, That's there's a lot of things, and then I'll be trying to fall asleep, but I could swap out this card for that card, and then I'm up for the rest of the night. So
Yeah, no, it's really it's very much like that. It's like, what do we take these feats and
You have to wait until someone puts it all into Baldur's Gate, or become a modder yourself and put it all into Baldur's Gate.
well, I'm not going to do that one, but I am assuming that once the new patch drops and the in-game mod tools drop, that someone will, and the PHP is actually like officially out, that yeah, some adventurous modder or group of modders will just go, hey, what if we put the new D&D rules into Baldur's Gate 3? Ta-da! But that's been me. The Masters Tour was cool. I wasn't casting it, which is a bummer, but I had a wedding to go to. And yeah, I don't know. What's up with you two?
well, I understand not playing a lot right now because I've been playing less mainly because I need something that is brain off Hearthstone, given how much like this project at work is going live next week, the one that I've been working on for 2.5 years. And so it's been kind of crazy at work, and I've needed games that I could play without having to think too much. And that is not standard Hearthstone right now at all. I did sit myself down and get myself to learn Overheal Priest on the stream on Monday night, and I got above a 50% win rate. So I think I got there, but also I am very exhausted after every one of those games. Especially there was one game on Monday night against a Reno Druid who, if you could generate something that would make you want to throw up, they generated it. They got they had a fizzle at one point. They got a Reska out of something. I forgot that they run mind control tech in the ETC now. That's a fun thing that they do. And mind control tech is targeted, by the way, since they buffed it, in case you haven't run into that fun little piece of tech at all recently. And they just had found just everything. And then finally I was keeping up because I just went into infinite Amenthul mode. And I was keeping up with them, and I'm down to one card in my deck, and they play a Boom Boss. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, there is no way that I'm losing to a Boom Boss that got generated from a freaking golden kobold on like turn 15 after this 20-minute back and forth. But every once in a while, I can generate a tiny bit of good luck, and I won the 1 in 4 to draw the card that was not a TNT out of my deck, and then just killed them. Because if they had blown up my board, it was going to be... I had a Hedonis on the board at that point. So it was like, I just need to like not have my Hedonis die and like be able... Oh, and I had a Fanatum that I'd gotten from the Amenthul, which it was late enough that I was able to hard cast it from my hand because my deck was so empty.
That's how I know you've been playing Magic. You said library.
Yeah, yeah, I said library instead of deck. Yeah, but yeah. So I had like the fifth. I'm like, I have a 15/15 on the board, and they're 20, and it's like I just need to be able to just hit them and I just top decked it. Like, okay, I don't even have to worry about if the Hedonis is going to go face. I can just hit them with my minions, and they will die, and this game will be over, and I will be free. So
I was watching. I think I came in partway in. Then I'm watching the game, and then my partner gets home. I'm like putting away groceries. The game is still going. When I come back, and I'm like, where did all these things even come from?
Yeah.
So Wicked clipped the game, and I was able to watch the full thing after. I will say there is one more disgusting thing that they could have had in there, which is a Zarimi out of their golden cobalt, which is what happened.
Gotten a Zarimi. Yeah.
I was trying to learn Overheal Priest. I was doing really well against aggro, having a hard time against druids, even though I think statistically that's not a terrible matchup. It requires much more brain on, because like aggro, it's like, okay, how do I get my hauler out and then not have my hauler die? There's definitely techniques for that, but straightforward game plan. It's just a matter of execution. Druids, there's like a lot of different ways you can go. And then if you end up with the sort of like, this game is going on endlessly and I have a lot of Amonthul's plan, you're trying to figure out, okay, I've generated lots of different things. What's going on? There was one game where I lost because I didn't realize that my best out was I had played a Helya earlier and they had few cards left in their deck and I should try to get them to 3 so that if they drew 2 plagues, then they were dead. This exact lethal situation is never going to come up again. And it was at the end of like a 20-minute game and I had to go to work. But I had one game where I'm like, all right, I really got this against this druid. I figured it out. There is no way that they can win. I have gotten rid of all of their win conditions. And then they still had a golden kobold and I got them a Zarimi and they had exact lethal.
Yep. That'll do.
No.
My partner is like, are you okay? It was like breakfast. It was like first day of fall classes. He's like, this is not how you want to be going into work. And I'm like, I know. I have to play another game so that I win. Also, you know it's bad if you're ever saying I have to play another game so that I win because.
Oh yeah, no, don't do
that's
that.
Very
that's a way. That's just a way to get yourself late to work and still have lost 3 games. That's what happens then. Yeah,
that is exactly what happens then. So,
yeah. But yeah, and just to prove how much my brain has been off this week. So Maureen and I started the new Diablo season a little bit late. Like it started last week. We didn't start it till like I think Monday. And we've been playing it in the mornings while I ride the bike before I go to work or sometimes in the evenings because I've been working from home this week. And we got up to level 30 and I said, oh, you know what we should do? We should just do the capstone dungeon and go up to world tier 3. So we do it. And it's like, they must have buffed the difficulty of this because this feels like way harder than I remember. And we're dying a lot more than we normally do. Like we normally like blow through the capstone dungeon and it's like, oh, we're like actually having trouble killing some of these things. And then we go to, we finish it. It only takes us 2 tries. We finish it. And we go up to world tier 3. And then I remember that you're not supposed to go up to world tier 3 until level 50.
Yeah.
And so we were like drastically under leveled. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry I just put us through this because I didn't know what numbers were. So the good news is we got those levels real quick in world tier 3 because we were really under leveled. And I am playing a rogue because I am debating buying the Sylvanas transmog set because I still have all of my platinum left over from BlizzCon and it would only be like $8 or $10 for me to get it. So I am very seriously considering it, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet. So we'll see. It is the other ones are kind of, I don't know who most of the characters are. I only know Sylvanas and Kael'thas. And like the other ones I don't care, and Kael'thas is just kind of meh, but the Sylvanas one's very good. Did you have anything else from Life and Ladder this week, Megasa? Or are you?
Well, so I mean, I kind of talked about the Overhealed Priest. I got up to 50%, and then I ruined it. So I had been thinking about having that be Decksplanations this week, but decided I didn't really feel comfortable enough with it, and I had another idea that I liked better.
This was the funniest thing. Just watching you two talk about trying to learn Overheal Priest, and because it's the most popular deck in the Masters Tour, just in the most lineups, alongside maybe the Rogue, but I feel like some people didn't do the Rogue, or at least there was variation in the Rogue because some were giants. But at any rate, you two Overheal Priest, and you're just like, oh, I'm doing well. Oh, not anymore. and just the, I don't know, watching the cycle of, oh, we should do this as our Decksplanations, because the Masters Tour, and then maybe we shouldn't actually tell people how to play this deck because we're not quite there yet.
Well, I also watched Lorinda's stream where Sottle and Banter were both in there telling Lorinda what to do in classic style, and I realized that, oh, I haven't even thought of half the things they're telling them to do, and I'm not at all at the level where I am comfortable instructing a large audience of people on how to not tank their ranks with this deck, and it felt like it might be malpractice for us to try to explain to people how to play this deck when it is not at all straightforward.
Yeah, I was feeling like I had the mechanics of like how to get the maximum heals with a particular hand and stuff like that down because I played a lot of other versions of Overheal, but there's a lot going on with like what minions do you pull off of Creation Protocol or Birdwatching? It's very situation dependent. What do you take off your Amanthul? What are you saving your heals for? There are slightly different builds. I was playing with Banter's build, which was the same as at least one other person in the Masters Tour. But there were other people who had run Puppet Theater. Like there was an insane game with that we were talking about before the show with WeakU on Double Rainbow DK and Definition on Overheal Priest. And this game was like 25 minutes because Definition used Puppet Theater to get a Primus. And then there was like 7 Primuses or something over the course of this game.
Which seems
and
low,
Raven and
honestly.
Sottle were just cackling. It was just back and forth, stealing extra health, getting one back with a Reska, but then, able to resurrect more with Rest in Peace, and just, able to get stuff back with a Sasquatch. I mean, it was just, like, endless. On the other side of the spectrum, you had Maxibon swearing that you should actually not play the Tidepool Pupils and instead play Mixologist. I assume in part because you can resurrect a minion with Mixologist, and like Tidepool Pupil is your one bad hit there. Everything else is great. And then it gives you some flexibility on other things as well. I haven't tried that yet. There's just like so much stuff going on that I was like, you know what? Maybe later. I did have some good coachings on Zarimi and Death Knight, where I feel it was truly collaborative. Learned as much in certain ways from from the people who I was co-oping with. Little things like throwing the clergy out in Zarimi as a soft taunt at one point because we actually had enough cards in hand, but we knew that they would go out of their way to kill it. Using Synchronize on 2 is often just like amazing because then you have extra stats in play on your first thing and it doesn't get cleared. When to prioritize getting extra health from the Kyurgeon, if the Kyurgeon's going to die. Like there was lots of great stuff going on in there. And then, first week of school. So I haven't played that much over the past couple of days. I went to this really silly thing, but I went to the dentist, and this is what, this is like welcome to your 30s. Everything's catching up to me now. It was like, I used to like not floss, and I'd go in and they were like, you should floss, but there was no actual consequence for not flossing. Like I genetically lucky enough that I had enough enamel that I just like didn't get cavities. I have some friends who got cavities earlier, but I was lucky enough not to. But now I went in, and this is a hygienist who I know it's not her fault, but it just like hurts so much the entire time, and I was like bleeding everywhere. She was like, boy. You really need to get a better electric toothbrush. You really need to get, like a water pick, or at least be flossing with something. So I let myself get upsold into this expensive electric toothbrush. I had no idea how much you can spend on an electric toothbrush. This was like middle of the...
Yeah. Yeah, it's like buying a car. You can really go nuts with it. Yeah,
you can go very nuts. And I was expecting my partner to be like, you spent how much on an electric toothbrush? But instead he was like, what? I want an expensive electric toothbrush. Where can I get one of these things? Turned out that I was not actually charged a bad price. It was actually more expensive on Amazon to try to get another one. So shout out to my dentist, I guess.
That's because you didn't let them charge you for the undercoating. So
I mean, I still had to pay for the exam and the cleaning, but now my teeth feel fantastic. And one last note that I had put here, since we talked, I've been seeing a lot of, Buttons DK didn't do great in the Masters Tour, but I think it's still fine on ladder. I have been seeing a lot of cold feet in both versions of
That's the Vicious
DK.
Syndicate list. Yeah. Because that's the list that Vicious Syndicate had today.
And inspired by one of the players, right?
Yeah. Well, that's where they got it from. And then that was the featured list in the Vicious Syndicate report today.
Yeah. So I just wanted to highlight that it's quite effective against a lot of decks. To, whether you're doing it aggressively, like I threw out a big board and now you can't counter because I put it in cold feet. You can also use it reactively. Donkey is pointing out that the Frost Unholy DK did a lot better than the
It was the rainbow ones that got demolished for the most part. Yeah.
I will say that the one who made it out of the group with, I mean, there were a bunch of DKs in that group, weirdly enough, but the one who made it out, who had the cold feet, it was, double rainbow, right? With Rainbow Seamstress, Runes of Darkness, that stuff. But I do think that was more the cold feet than the rune selection, because cold feet just goes very well into the field right now. And the Double Frost One Unholy is, I think, much better at capitalizing on what you want to be doing with a card like Cold Feet, which is pushing damage.
Right.
Rather than having a Threads of Despair kind of stuff going on, if you're just focused on being extremely aggressive and then Cold Feet 4 times in a row because you have Tidepool Pupil. That's pretty good.
And it's also, the Horn of Winter makes it easier to fit into, because you're not actually taking a tempo loss for playing a 2-mana spell that effectively does nothing. Right. Mm-hmm. But when you can just Horn of Winter into it, then you can take your normal turn, Horn of Winter into the Cold Feet, and then, okay, figure it out now. I was playing that today, and my opponent played like an 8-mana 3-drop, and it was an 8-mana Hardcore Cultist that didn't even clear my board. I'm like, okay, that seems fine. That seems like a good play. I'm happy with my choices. But that's gonna. I think we do have some news to talk about, and then we're gonna have plenty more Masters Tour talk coming. But we do have a little bit of news before we get into that, so let's go to that.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
So we have patch 30.2 has been out. That's the Battlegrounds patch. We haven't even really talked about that, but I did play some games with the trinkets, and it does seem fun, and it was as close to augments as I was hoping. So that's been pretty good. There are some open bugs with Battlegrounds. You'll want to go through and look through the notes if there's something that's happening there. There are a few other things that are going on outside of Battlegrounds. Battlegrounds we kind of expect. There are going to be a lot of bugs and bug fixes just because it's a brand new mode with new mechanics. Arena was shut down for like a day because there was a problem with the way that the card generation was happening when you were discovering. That's been fixed. So you should be able to get into Arena now if you were having trouble or you weren't able to play earlier in the week. You should be able to play Arena now. The Golden Pack bug has also been fixed. So there is a non-golden pack in the shop right now. So you can, if you were one of the people who just didn't have the pack at all, then it will be granted to you. But if you're having trouble from this point forward, and it happened to me on Tuesday, so if you click to redeem like the non-golden pack that's in the shop now, and then it just doesn't show up, just log out, log back in, it should be there. That was what happened to me, and I've seen a couple other people saying the same thing. They logged out, logged back in, and it was there when they came back in the next time. I don't know what the reasoning is for that, but so don't panic. Just try logging out. You take the typical IT crowd, or not IT crowd, but just like the IT solution of turn it off and on again, and you'll be fine. So that's for the pack. There is also the team is investigating a report that Sandbox Scoundrel, which is the 5-mana pirate, that discounts something by 3 in Rogue, return to your hand and replayed may not always generate the mini Sandbox Scoundrel. This bug also may be causing an issue where forging a card from Spirit of the Badlands Mirage makes it lose the Mirage effect. The second part sounds like a bug. The first part sounds like a feature, but that's just me. But yeah, so just be aware of that if you're trying to jam the overly complicated Grifta and kill your opponent with 6 damage repeatedly deck. That might get in the way because returning your Sandbox Scoundrel to your hand, typically you're returning, I think, the 1-mana one to your hand, but if you do bounce the 5-mana one, just be aware of that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you breakdance it because you need a 4/3 to do something right away, but I don't know.
Yeah, the breakdances are usually pretty valuable, so you don't want to be spending them on something like that too, I guess. So
that when I was playing Standard, that was the deck I was playing.
Yeah, that sounds about right. There's also similarly, there's an issue with some quests not progressing. Again, do the same thing, turn it off and on again, log back in, you should be fine. If not, then then you can report that to the community folks, and they'll look at it. But it sounds like if you're having anything outside of Battlegrounds that is weird, just log out, log back in, and see if it fixes it. And anyone who got Demolition Renovator as in their end of season rewards last season, which is a core card that's not currently craftable, will have now been granted 400 dust to make up for that missing epic. So if you were one of those, you probably just saw it. You'll know when you get it. It's pretty big. It shows up in your face. You will know when you've gotten healed up by that. The heroic Tavern Brawl, Wild Heroic Tavern Brawl is live. There have been some issues with people putting in illegal decks into the Wild Brawliseum. Those people have been banned, according to Celestalon, and the team is closely monitoring the situation. So you should be, if you were scared off of it, and if you were following on Twitter, there were some people saying, don't queue Wild Tavern Brawl right now because there are people scamming, and they're going to, they're going to knock you out. So A, they're gone and the team is watching for them. B, if it does happen, they know it's very obvious to the team when somebody is cheating like this, and they'll compensate you for the loss. So I don't know if that's going to mean just putting the gold back in your account or giving you some other, rewards or whatever. You'll be compensated. So don't be afraid to queue into the Wild Heroic Tavern Brawl if that is something you want to do. If you have already taken into account all of our warnings from last week about whether that is the right thing for you to be doing at this point in your Hearthstone life.
There was a tweet from Corbett running into someone who's had managed to start as Jiraxis through cheating, and Corbett won and then ran into them again on the same run and then won again.
Oh my god.
Oh, okay.
But not all of us are Corbett.
I see we've played Knifey Spoony before. Okay. So that's it for that. We also had some fairly significant shop updates, as one would typically expect with a new patch. There is a Diamond Amanthul in the shop. That is something that most people would expect that I have already invested in. I have not, because it's still $60.
Yeah, same for me. I'm like, oh, I really want this, but I don't really care that much about the 2 SIGs, and it's $60. Like, if it was $25, I would have bought it already.
Yeah, exactly. So it does come with two signature legendaries, so there's value there. If you are a priest enjoyer, that is something that you'll get value out of, but I have other things that I am gonna spend my money on right now.
Yeah,
so.
I don't understand this need to always package these things in with the other stuff, right? Like,
yeah,
you could also do a piecemeal version, right? Where it's like, if you get just the Amanthul, it's this much. If you get the signatures, it's this much, but you get a slight deal if you get them together, right? But
yeah,
I imagine there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I want the diamond, but that's way too much, and I don't care about the signatures.
Yeah. It does feel like putting a hurdle in front of the cash register, though. I guess there are presumably people at Blizzard who spend all day just thinking about how to price these things and how to bundle them. So, I don't know. Speaking of bundles that I will never buy, there is a Rogue signature spell bundle. Well, they're for 3 classes. There's one for Rogue, one for Druid, one for Warrior, of 4 spells with signature art. And there's 3 cards for Rogue and then 2 each for Druid and for Warrior. The Rogue signature bundle, is that $50? That's not, that seems high, but I guess it is. For Prep, Shadow Step, and Tess, plus 5 Rogue packs, which is just encouraging people to play Shadow Step more, which is of course going to make me unhappy, but it is what it is. Druid has Swipe and Innervate and 5 packs for $25 or 2,500 root stones. Warrior has Brawl, Shield Block, and 5 packs for 2,500 root stones or $25 USD. So if that's something that you're interested in, go get those. I don't know how long those will be in the shop, but the art is very good. I wish it wasn't encouraging delinquent behavior, but the art is very good.
People were going to play their Shadow Step anyway.
I know. We don't need to give them more reasons to, but that's beside the point.
Signature prep.
Yeah.
I didn't know about this because I haven't logged in a while. What have you done?
I do like that the test art is very good, I will say. But it also kind of looks at a glance like she's giving you the finger, which is how I envision every test that's played against me is doing anyway. So,
I don't care about the tests as much because I'm not generally a test enjoyer, but prep and Shadow Step, amazing. And then similarly, like Brawl and Shield Block, very cool. Druid can die in a fire, but I guess they have Swipe and Innervate. And the art's great, even if I don't like Druids. Innervate is not what it used to be. So
I mean, the spells are ones that if you play these classes, you will use these cards. For sure. Like there are no whiffs in these sets. Like you are going to play those cards. There are also additional signature bundles from the last couple sets. So you can get a signature Game Master Nemzi, which is incredible art, made from the same artist who did Signature Sif. There's a signature Hagatha the Fabled, signature Jotun the Eternal, and signature Sonya Water Dancer. Those are all 4,000 runestones or $40 USD and come with 5 Perils in Paradise packs a piece. So if you're interested in those, then those are also available. And we have some new portraits in the shop. So we have a Pony Brightmane, who I believe is a new Paladin character. That comes with a card back in 5 packs for 1,500 runestones or $15 USD. There is Pandaria Mal'Ganis for $1,000 or 10 or 1,000, not $1,000, 1,000 runestones or $10. And Norbergon Omen, who's the 2-headed Death Knight wolf, for 1,000 runestones or $10. And then returning to the shop for gold, you have Apple Arana, Flower Child Lunara, and Appetizer Anduin. Appetizer Anduin being the avocado toast portrait, because of course Priest is the avocado toast class. Don't ask me. So
well, it's Anduin specifically. Has
it
that
is
energy.
Anduin. I mean, Anduin is more white bread than avocado toast, but that's beside the point. But yeah. So that's he's more plain toast. I don't see him having any spice or flavor, but that's beside the point. But yeah, so those are all available for 1,000 gold or $6.99 USD if those are things that you want to buy. And that's pretty much all the news, except that we have a whole Masters Tour to talk about. So let's go and do that.
It's the grand tournament.
So, if you haven't watched the Masters Tour and you're planning to, spoilers, we're going to talk about the results, so maybe go do that first. But in terms of the groups, in Group A, Fury Hunter and Maori advanced, eliminating WeQ and Definition. Group B, Gyu and McBanterface advanced, eliminating Yarla and Dead Draw. Group C, Maxibon and Gamer RVG advanced, with Photon and Gabby being eliminated. And then Group D, Inkuro and KT8298, who is the Taiwanese player, advanced, with Mismile and Ogo, the Korean player, not advancing. So that left us with the top 8. Fury versus Banter, Maxibon versus KT, Gyu versus Maori, and Inkuro versus Gamer RVG. Banter made it out of the quarterfinals, but then lost to Maxibon in the semis. Gamer RVG actually made it all the way to the finals, but then lost to Maxibon. So very nearly had that America's champion, and then did not manifest. But yeah, this is still one of the better America's region performances in having Banter and Gamer RVG in the semis. But Maxibon, I think the youngest player in the event.
I think he's 16.
This is like that kid at the Olympics where it's just like, what are you doing here? What?
There were multiple comparisons to Amnesiac over the course of the weekend.
Yep.
And also a Wild player, well known in the Wild community, is guested on the Born to Be Wild podcast and other things as well. So not just a standard player, but someone well known in the Wild community. So the Wild community was very happy about that as well.
Yes, he of course was repeating in his final interview at the end, watch out standard players. If everyone from Wild came over, you'd be out of a job.
Wait, really? Oh, yeah. God.
Not without humor. I will say he was definitely taking the kind of good-natured trash talk and then backed it up, winning the Masters Tour. But yeah, very confident that he had the best lineup. Very confident that he had good play. And it did work out for him. So it is an entertaining interview. There's actually 2 of him on day 3. But if you just skip to the end of the Masters Tour, day 3, he's very confident.
Yeah, and that lineup was Anbuff Paladin, Overheal Priest, Miracle Rogue, and Insanity Warlock, which is actually the same lineup that Banter had, and also Gamer RVG. So really just differences in card choices, right? In terms of, what was going on between those decks.
And notably, no druids in those lineups.
So, right. Maori was the sole druid in that semifinals, in that top 4. And it was a Highlander druid, which I think, I'm sure that made Sottle's day. Yeah, not... if you had to pick a druid to make it to the top 4, I don't think anyone would have picked Highlander druid, but it's something that TJ mentioned over the course of the day was that while they are one-ofs, there is a lot, like the fact that there is so much ramp in druid now means you can still semi-consistently hit it, and being Highlander, you do have more of these not typical cards in there that are just for defense, like Night Elf Huntress and some other stuff that it's just like, yeah, those are defensive tools that other druids don't have. And then you can still do those same, high-powered plays after playing Marin or ANR or whatever. So,
yeah. And I mean, there's probably something to be said for the fact that, like, these players, like, everyone knew that Druid was going to be targeted in this, in this meta, right? But the druids that they were practicing all these decks against were the Concierge Druid and the Dragon Druid. It was not Reno Druid. So, like, there is kind of an element of surprise that you get when you have a deck that just people haven't run as many reps against, and you don't know the lines that they're going to take as cleanly. So that does give you a bit of a benefit by picking a different take on the deck. But I think the fact that, like, this is not to say that Druid is a bad deck, but this is a deck that was very heavily targeted. Like, the Insanity Warlock was there to take that down. The Handbuff Paladin to some extent. I mean, that was really there to hate on Rogue. But Rogue and Druid were known entities that were going to be problematic going into this tournament. And it was pretty effectively shut down. And the real proof of that is that the 2 players in the finals didn't have Druid in their lineup.
Yeah.
So, that bet kind of paid off.
Yeah, one thing that I think Sottle was saying in particular, was you had a lot of people had either Insanity Warlock or Handbuff Paladin as their 4th deck. But what turned out to be the best strategy was have both of them and not Druid. Even though Insanity Warlock and Handbuff Paladin didn't nearly do as well as Overheal Priest and Miracle Rogue, they held up, and the Druid was more targeted than they were. Although when it went head to head, the Handbuff Paladin tended to win against the Insanity when you had that matchup.
Yeah, it did. Oh my goodness. Insanity Warlock went 1 and 7 into hand buff
Oof.
paladins. So shout out to Oncrad for a bunch of stats on the Masters Tour. We've got, Miguel said, put a link in the show notes to those stats, as well as lineups on HS Guru. So definitely check those out. But in terms of just kind of a quick summary, Overheal Priest, by far the most popular deck. I think it was in 14 of the 16 lineups, and it was actually the best one too. So solid read on that. It's not always the case, but its win rate was like 63%.
And that's with it being banned more than half the
Right.
time.
Yeah, the adjusted, if you, so adjusted means like if you include it's being banned or whatever, is 69.5%. So it goes up with that because some people banned it. It was played 30 games, and drew bans 23 times.
It was banned more than it was played.
Yeah. It's just done incredibly, but as is noted from my two lovely co-hosts who attempted to play it a bunch of the past several days, it's really hard. The things for this MT landed on a few really high skill cap decks, and I think that is primarily the Overheal Priest and the Miracle Rogue, which was the number 2 deck in terms of win rate. Miracle Rogue at 55%. I think the Miracle Rogue gets hyped up more because the way it wins is sometimes more impressive, right? Like
It's even more APM and yeah.
and can be harder, but the Overheal Priest actually has more game plans, right? Like ultimately the Rogue has one major thing it is trying to do, which is just always have board advantage and end with a way of playing Sonya and Breakdance again on your next turn with Tideful Pupil. And usually you'll end out the game with, a Grifta Trinket for 6 damage or replay. People weren't doing Mixologist spells in this case because they were running tech cards, but that's another way. But it's like difficult to string together, and you're not always going to hit the things you want to hit, and it takes some time to get going because you really want to have the mini that reduces your next card by 3, and that's not coming out till turn 5 or 4 on the coin. So it's trickier. Whereas the Overheal Priest, you can very easily just be like, well, this is an aggro deck, so we want our thing that destroys their board, and we're not going to play other minions to get resurrected so that we can always resurrect that and keep clearing their board.
Even something like a Druid, sometimes you can just get so many holler procs that you just keep clearing their board that way. I only had one time where an aggro deck, where I drew the holler and the aggro deck still smorked me down, which was a absolutely perfect opening from a Pirate Demon Hunter where they had 30 damage on board on turn 4 wow. on the play. So they actually missed lethal by 1, but it didn't matter because I still couldn't holler clear, even though I had holler in my hand. So the holler thing's very powerful, but sometimes that doesn't work. You have Hedonist, but that isn't always able to work. But and a lot of the pieces are used for both, so you have to kind of pick what are you using things for.
But you also can just fall back on, well, I'm just going to play Aman'Thul's forever,
right?
And let that get me out of this, and that plan works better than you would think it. Well, you probably think that works pretty well, but you can play an obscene number of Aman'Thul's, and then the Aman'Thul's give you all the extra legendaries. They're removing things. They're giving you the 6 drops occasionally, so. You can just keep building boards and removing your opponent's boards, and then Rest in Peace gives you another Aman'Thul the remove 2 minions removes their big thing that you just summoned when you're doing that. So you can just like you have plan A, which is like just keep them from ever building a board, or plan A prime, I guess, is Adonis and kill them. And then plan B is just, well, I'm just going to play Amenthals until you give up.
Right. And you can control sort of which route you're going to go. Like the ability to just play a Adonis and do some damage with it, but then know that you can resurrect it later, I think has given this deck a lot more versatility. And same thing with the Amenthal, right? You run it out, and even if you can't Power Chord synchronize it that turn, Rest in Peace is only 3 mana, and you can poof whatever you summon for them. So the deck just has so much going for it, and so many powerful minions to get extra copies of. So yeah, extremely potent. That being said, the Rogue was the number 2 deck, 55% win rate. Number 3, Hand Buff Paladin, which is unexpected, but I think largely rides on the back of these powerful tech cards into the high level meta right now in Razor Scale and Customs Enforcer. Right, both of these things. There's a lot of stuff that generates things that were not in their deck, right? That for Customs Enforcer make expensive, or wants to reduce the cost of cards, and then Razor Scale says actually they still cost 2. The Rogues want to do that. Insanity Warlocks want their crescendos to be 0 and their sludges to be 1 from Popgar, and that's ultimately how they usually get there. Like the matchup of Hand Buff Paladin versus Insanity Warlock is basically, if you have as the Warlock the turn 3 Insanity into turn 4, make a bunch of 3/3s, maybe you'll be okay. And if you don't, you're kind of screwed, because they very consistently get whatever buffs they need to make these tech cards very hard to kill. And I think the relevant bit here is that these are not like do this for a turn tech cards the way that your Cult Neophytes are, which some of them had that too, or the tradable, right, the Speaker Stopper. These are, as long as this is in play, I am taxing you. And because I'm taxing you, it's harder to kill this. Oh, and also it's twice the size it usually is.
And it's already big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Plus, even just the regular minions that Handbuff puts out can just be hard for Insanity to clear, unless they have really, really ramped their fatigue, which is hard for them to do fast enough.
Yeah. Plus, it's also they're life stealing the whole time. So you're forcing the Insanity Warlock to kill you from 30 and wipe your board, which it can do, but it's hard for it to do it quickly enough before the Paladin overwhelms them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the kind of losers of this top 5 of classes, the various druids, good druid or concierge druid, right? The good druid, 51.9% win rate. Getting that number 4 spot, and then Insanity Warlock at 46.9, sub 50, not great. Yeah, I think it was just one of those things where it's like you had to take something else, and you weren't banning Paladin, right? So the Insanity Warlock did okay. It's actually really funny. It was in a bunch of lineups. So a lot of times people would like win in the mirror.
And that's how they got it out. Yeah. So if you lost the mirror, the Insanity mirror, it was like, good luck. Now you have to get this deck through something else.
It had a loss to Overhill Priest. It went 8-8 against other Insanity Warlocks. 3-4 into Miracle Rogue. And then 1-7 into Handbuff Paladin. So it got obliterated by Handbuff Paladin. And then went 2-2 into these druids. So maybe there was something else that would have done better there, but Insanity Warlock was the popular pick. I think Sottle had mentioned something of like, if Banter makes it out of his group, he will have done so with Insanity Warlock only ever winning the mirror.
Which he did make it out of the group.
Yeah.
There were, the of the less popular decks, like as we mentioned at the top of the show, the Double Rainbow Death Knight really did not do very well. Out of 16 games, it had a 25% win rate. The Shamans did not do very well. Evolved Shaman had a 30.8% win rate out of 13 games. The Frost Unholy DK only had 3 games, but it won all 3. But so take from that as
100%
you will.
win rate.
100% win rate. Clearly, so technically highest win rate in the tournament.
Concierge Druid also had a 71% win rate, 71.5% win rate. So it was the better Druid to bring, except that it was still not the best deck to bring or the best class to bring, but it was the better Druid.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's a tough call into what other people are going to bring. There were a couple of folks on Nature Shaman, which I assume was just a comfort thing, and that did not end well.
Yeah, Gabby was one of them, and yeah, that didn't work out well for him.
Gabby and Dead Draw.
Yeah.
Evolved Shaman also didn't go great. The Giants Rogues actually performed better than the regular ones, which kind of makes sense to me. They have a game plan that is less reliant on doing that main Sonya shenanigans, which means sometimes they're just gonna get you and screw your tech cards.
Yeah, and it comes out quickly enough that it kind of gets around a lot of the things that take setup time. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Plus, there's a factor of players didn't necessarily have a ton of time to learn this rogue. I think one thing that Maxi Bond said in his interview was that he felt really comfortable with this meta. It's a very wild-like meta, having these fast, high APM decks, and he felt like he'd had a lot of time on the rogue, a lot of time on the overheal compared to a lot of competitors. So I could see if you had a lot of experience with Gaslight Rogue, taking something that was partly Gaslight Rogue just for comfort reasons could even be part of it. Where how that part plays, and that gives you less other stuff to practice. Although they were still running Sonya, they were still running that package, but also Gaslight.
Yeah, I mean there were some people like WeQ who brought neither the priest nor the rogue because he apparently said, I don't know, I'll paraphrase because this is what the caster said, that he wasn't smart enough to play those decks, which I don't necessarily believe, but I do believe that he probably didn't have enough time to practice them to feel comfortable with them. But then he kind of got punished by that, by not getting out of the groups, because those decks, the decks that he did bring fell to those things, right? So,
but we're actually, for the Decksplanations, going to be doing a little deep dive analysis on some particular games from the Masters Tour. We promise this is nothing on Banter, but it just so happened that he loses in all of them. We love your Banter.
He just makes such great faces when he does lose. So,
3 out of 4. Yes, he does make really good faces. I just happened to catch a lot of Banter's play. Most of them, I picked them to say, Banter, you played it well. I'm sorry it didn't work out for you. So apologies. Banter did win more games than he lost, to be clear.
This is like the old Captain Picard quote, right? Like, it is possible to do everything right and still lose, and that is life, or something like that. So yeah.
Yep. Something to remember. But real quick, we do have also the Concede listener series continues. In that meta, the popular classes were Death Knight at 20 brings, 14 of which were Double Rainbow, and then 6 of which were the Frost. Priest, we had 19 of them, 15 being Zaremi, 3 Overheal, and 1 Pain Priest. Which...
You can tell that it's the Concede listener series, because
exciting. I want to see more
listening to me.
Pain Priest developments, but
yes.
16 Warlocks with 11 Insanity and 5 Pain, 15 Shamans, which Shaman is just all over the place right now. I mean, there's just so much to try in Shaman. apparently it's not as good as the main stuff, but I think it's still pretty cool. And for most of us out here, there's a lot of viable options, from pirate to evolve to the jive shenanigans, right, where you make 3 rags, to what they're just calling bonk shaman, right, where you have wind fury and give yourself a bunch of buffs utilizing some of the pirate synergies. There's also arena shaman and Syndius shaman. So 12 druids, 8 of which are the sort of tempo good druid, dragon druid, whatever you want to call it, 3 concierge, and 1 tsunami from Torby Flenderson. Basically, ramp, play tsunamis if you can. Play them after Mista Vista, so they recast. Cool. Paladin, there were 9 of them, 5 hand buff, 3 aggro, right, like the token kind of paladin, and 1 Earthen Lanessa paladin from Eltaras. And then in terms of other classes, we did have the Overseer, once again, with a unique lineup, including Excavate Mage, Sandwich Warrior, and Well Rogue. Yumrose brought a big spell mage, and Ghetto Tech brought Odin Warrior, which I have seen doing well. Not a whole lot of people are interested in playing Odin Warrior, but it can do quite well. Shout out to Nemelith for hitting on the winning Masters Tour lineup of Overheal, Hand Buff, and Infinite Rogue. And yes, Nemelith did win their match. So in terms of quick highlight, we had one game of Potato Cat versus SSJ5 Goku, where Potato got like an insane roll on Razzle Dazzler, where it summoned 2 AFKs. So they each end up buffing each other to 2/7, and then your other minions, in this case 3 other minions, get +4/+4. Pretty cool. But, of course, SSJ5 Goku on the Good Stuff Druid top-decked Yogg, and with a 9 mana to 6 mana differential, was able to play it and save himself, which...
Yep.
Yeah.
Rough.
That's Hearthstone.
Sounds Druid. Yeah. But Megasa set up a ton of great analyses of matches here for the Decksplanations, and they include quite a few images. So if you are unable to paint a picture in your mind with our words, go ahead and check out the show notes to get the sort of, play-by-play with pictures.
All right, so I picked a few games from the Masters Tour. There are in the show notes like timestamped links if you want to watch the game. I also put in pictures, partly just so that we don't have to be watching the game while we're talking to you, because I thought that would be kind of awkward. Although we do have the links in there, and had kind of specific things to highlight from them. I thought I always learned so much from the Masters Tour, watching really good players, being able to hear the casters analyzing. Definitely some of the analysis we have here is indebted to our amazing casters, so thank you to them for always making it entertaining and informative simultaneously. But where we thought, what are some like general lessons that you can take, if you want to learn more about how to play any of those like top 5 decks that we were just talking about, watching the just like scanning through until you find games with those decks is a great way to learn it. Like if you're like, I don't really know what the Sonya Rogue really looks like in practice, lots of games where you can see that. I don't really know what the Overheal Priest looks like in different matchups, you can find those. So, but I wanted to not just talk about like specific matchup stuff, but also some more general principles. And yes, sorry, McBanterface for the ones I picked. This first one's a little bit longer, so I won't necessarily go play through every turn here. But on day 1, we had you on the Tempo Good Stuff Dragon Druid and McBanterface on Overheal Priest. And basically the story on this one was you didn't draw super well. McBanterface really controlled the board just with haulers. Didn't even need Almonthools for most of the game. It's just like hollers all the way. But you had an extremely clever out. So this is really, I titled Playing to Your Outs Advanced Edition of recognizing what is left in my deck. How can I make that the most, if I draw my cards in the right order from here, can I win? How do I set that up? So we started with a good opening from you. He got the Gift Wrap Whelp. He got the Splish Splash Whelp. McBanterface took extra geodes off of his creation protocol, which instead of like extra Almonthools or something right off the bat, because even against a druid, your first game plan is not necessarily an Almonthool game plan, and besides that's slow, especially against a druid that's going to steal your mana crystals with Doomkin, so it's going to take extra long before you can play your Almonthool. So what you really want is more heals. I found when I played this deck, I was running out of heals more often than anything else, which is why most people besides Maxibon are playing Tidepool people and stuff like that. So like having extra geodes, especially because also they have swipe, they have spell damage, some of your geodes are going to die. Backup geodes, it's like your most self-renewing heal if you can have them not die to swipes. So he took geodes, set them up slowly. You had a great turn 4 with the 3/4 taunt. Why am I forgetting the name of that? Matron. And Doomkin, that was discounted. But starting on, I guess, turn 5, because it's going to be hard to, I'm just going to say mana, because you can't tell what turn it is in Druid games.
Turns are meaningless in a Druid game anyway, so it doesn't matter what turn it was.
So Banter finally got the hauler going, cleared a big board of dragons, and you really kind of had a choice here of, he had 9, he had, I think, an innervate. He had 9 mana. So he could either play a Chia Drake and then play the Flower Child and kind of try to draw into his game plan, or he could play the Twin Perfect Zilliax just to clear that one hauler. And he chose to play the Twin Perfect Zilliax just to clear that hauler and have some pressure on the board and say to Banter, like, you have to be able to resurrect this hauler and have another hauler, or else I'm just running away with this game. So a theme of some of the later games that I have is like, when do you go all out to kill something? And this, I think, was a good example of go all out to kill this hauler, because the Overheal Priest does not always have another hauler. Kind of like when you're playing against a Control Priest or like Arena Priest, just find out if they actually have the removal. Sometimes it's the correct play, so in this case, like, find out if they actually have another hauler. But Banter had a rest in peace, so yes, he did, and also a clergy. And also another geode. Which was another place where I was like, okay, you went all out to find a swipe to clear this board, except for he couldn't quite clear he chose to destroy the clergy instead. I couldn't quite clear the hauler, so he killed the clergy and all 3 geodes. This was actually an interesting point. I'm curious on you guys thinking. So Sottle was saying he wasn't sure about this, or that the swipe wasn't what he personally would have done. Because if you clear this board, then you're not using that Flower Child to draw your big stuff, which means you have to use the Flower Child to draw your big stuff the next turn, which means that by the time you get your big stuff online, the priest has Almonthool online. So Sottle was like, the high risk, high reward play is ignore the hauler, ignore the clergy, you can deal with it later, just make like an A&R, Yogg board. The risk is that your Flower Child does not draw you A&R and Yogg or Marin, and instead draws you what actually ended up happening later, which was Doomkin and Fi.
Yeah. Well, I think the other risk, right, with leaving, I think it's less the clergy and more the 3 hidden gems that were on the board, right? Because like there was not very much that you would have had, like a 4/5 and then a 4/5 and a 2/4 that the hauler would be able to clear very easily. And then you just die if they have Hidanis, right? That's already 15 damage. Plus there's 3, 4, 6, 8, 10 that Banter can attack with. So that's 25 just from what's on the board, assuming that there's no other heals, right? I mean, I guess you need at least one heal to go into the Hedonis to get the overheal started. But like, you could just die if you don't clear those hidden gems. And even if you do, like, you're also giving Banter 3 more cards minimum to be able to find the Hedonis to kill you.
That's a great point. Yeah. So there are times when going all out. There are times like if your Zarimi opponent plays a clergy and they've already played their heals, leave it alive. Or like there was a game later that I cut from discussing where Gamer RBG didn't kill a Popgar, and it was because they had already played the crescendos. Like, doesn't even matter anymore. But yeah, in this case, if your fear is Amanthul, if you give Banter 3 more draws, he's that much more likely to find Amanthul. Or if your fear is Hedonis, you give him 3 draws, he's that much more likely to find Hedonis. So yeah, Gu chose to say, well, he had the thrice 7-mana Sleep Under the Stars spell, he had Flower Child, he had an ability to draw later, but he had to clear now. However, McBanterface still had the holler up. I skipped a turn in the pictures here, but basically, Banter spent like the next turn drawing. Gu also spent the turn drawing, but only got a Doomkin and a Fi off of that Flower Child when he did have a chance to play it. And when he played the Fi, McBanterface had basically the reason the card is in the deck, Vol'jin. Like, Vol'jin is in the deck for himself more than birdwatching, although you don't technically have to play birdwatching to have Vol'jin, right? Like, you can play the Turris by itself if you want to. But like, Fi is my favorite thing to do with Vol'jin, I have to say. My single favorite play is... And one thing to note, so Banter did not do it on his hauler because he had another hauler in hand, I think. So he didn't need to. But if you switch a hauler or a Hedonis's health with Vol'jin, it counts as now being at full health, even if it was damaged before. So a way to get your hauler or Hedonis to full health is to use Vol'jin. McBanterface chose to make a 4/11 clergy instead, but you could do either way. I'm actually interested in that play. I guess he thought that protecting the draw was more important when he already had another hauler in hand.
I think also at that point, Banter is pretty much trying to find Hedonis, right? Like, wants to close this out quickly. Speaking to, you playing a little bit of the slow game here, right? Or trying to remove those hidden gems earlier and get the big swing plays later on. I think the Overheal Priest, if you have a read that they don't have Hedonis, they don't kill you quickly, right? Like, if you keep them from drawing cards, then it's going to take them a while before they can actually just kill you. Amanthul is very powerful, but unless it has like something else to copy, or like gets a good hit off the summon a 6-drop, it's not killing you anytime soon, right? And even once it can attack, it's a 3/10. So it's pretty dependent on like what legendaries it gives. And Banter was holding back on the Amanthul to keep it for those big targets, right? Those things that he doesn't want to spend too many heals on clearing with the injured hauler. But of course, if they come out all at once and it's too much pressure, then you got a tough choice. You like have to use the hauler.
Well, he also may have been holding back on the Amanthul to make sure that the Rest in Peace could resurrect a Hedonis.
Right.
Because like, when you've played the hauler, then the hauler's the thing that gets resurrected, and like, well, sometimes there's a 50-50 with Pip or Vol'jin, but whatever. Once you played Hedonis, that is the most expensive thing that will always get resurrected until the point where you play Amanthul. So he may have been thinking that. And the other thing is that it's kind of impossible for you not to have a read that Banter definitely doesn't have Hedonis, because Banter drew 3 cards at the end of the prior turn, right? So like, he's done everything. He's just drawn 3 cards. He's going to draw a 4th on his draw step. So he's already drawn half his deck. So there's like a 50-50 chance that Hedonis is there. And, even if it was playable the prior turn, it might not have been played if Banter just didn't have the heals to go with it that he very likely would have picked up with those 4 draws.
Donkey also points out in terms of not playing at the Amanthul early, you don't want it to get yogged and be
That's also true.
unresurrectable.
Yeah.
So you want to wait until you can copy it. You don't want your Hedonis to get yogged either.
Right.
Unless you have lethal then. Right. So you want to be a little careful against a druid who hasn't played Yogg yet with what you've run out. Because that is absolutely a fail state that I have myself failed to consider and then been burned by.
Yeah, same. And usually Love Everlasting helps you with that, but Banter hadn't found Love Everlasting yet.
Yeah, trying to get Love Everlasting played before 7 so that then you can get the copy on the Amanthul on 7 can actually be like a reason to try to play the Love Everlasting a little earlier, especially if you have those cards in hand. Was not something that I had really... this is why I had to watch the Master Sword to get a sense of how to play this deck, because that's not something I was thinking about as much when I was playing it. I was not playing Love Everlasting early enough, often enough, I think. But in this case, Banter just didn't find Love Everlasting for a while. So, Banter had set up, 4/11 Clergy, still had a Hauler, played the Vol'jin, which did mean that once the Vol'jin died, the Rest in Peace had a 50-50 on Hauler or Vol'jin. Gyu did get the thrice off the top, made the big board. ANR used Yogg to steal the Clergy, saying, all right, you clearly really want to draw. Never mind, you can't draw, and also just, do something. Do you have another way to get rid of this? But Banter had a lot of heals and another Hauler and cleared the whole board.
But that Trog dealt a ton of damage.
That is true. He also threw out a Trog. That's very important and got McBanterface to 14. Because he had done a bunch of ramping and was at 14. I'm not quite sure how he did 16 there. But anyway.
He's a 15 when the Hauler clears his board. So there must have been two new heights somewhere along the line. It's Druid. It's basically a car crash in a Hearthstone deck. So, you're somewhere along the line.
There were new heights that I skipped happening. Plus there'd been a Splish Splash Whelp and a Doomkin.
We don't have all the random spells off the Yogg, right? It gave a tambourine, but maybe it also did some damage to the other minions or something.
Which I guess, how the hell
I think it did some extra damage.
That must have been, how do you get a tambourine?
Runes of Darkness.
Runes of Darkness.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think it did some clearing, and so then the Trog managed to do 10 damage face. Banter had been at 24 when that turn started and was at 14 at the end of that turn. So he really had to clear and was now somewhat vulnerable. The problem for Gyu was that he had now played most of his threats. Even if he draws Marin off the top, he doesn't have ANR. He doesn't, once McBanterface cleared that with a Hauler and really went all out to clear that as he needed to do, Gyu had Dorian. He didn't have Marin, but what does he have to draw with this? Well, what he still has in the deck is 1 Trog and 2 New Heights played. So, unbeknownst to McBanterface, you realized, I think around this point, possibly earlier, but that his out was to try to get it so that he could use Dorian and ideally also Marin to draw those Trog Gem Tossers and then find lethal that way, because that was really the only thing that he had left to threaten with. So he played the Drake to draw a spell, you swipe from gift to clear the Hauler, and the Geode that Banter had also played, his third Geode. And basically did everything with his draws to make it as likely as possible that he would draw double Trog. He was a little bit lucky that he didn't draw the Trog too early.
Yeah. And when we say double, this is Dorian. So you get a 0 cost copy because of the wand, and then a 1 cost copy. And you can always finale the 0 cost copy as long as you've spent all your mana.
Right, but it's a lot easier. I mean, the fact that he was able to not only do get Dorian down with a draw spell and then get deep enough into his deck without drawing the Trog to get it, and also have an innervate so that he could go He could go with the 0 cost Trog into Innervate 1 cost Trog, because it's a lot harder to get yourself left with 1 mana when you have 15.
Sure. Yep.
There was another way to do it, I think, where he could have like used a hero power. It's like he had played a 3 mana card. Like when he had 3 left, he played a. So basically, what happened was he did manage to find the Marin first, not dry the Trog, play Dorian, play Marin, draw into a 0 mana Trog and a 1 mana Trog using Marin's wand. And then he had a couple ways he could have done it. Because he now had a bunch of cards in his hand. It is true that if he didn't find it on that turn where he played Marin and the wand, he would have had a really hard time finaleing.
Yeah.
Because it would have been really hard to spend 15 mana. Exactly. So it definitely was good to. I think that's part of why he waited to try to draw as many cards as possible, but not all the cards, so that then he could try to play the Marin. And poor McBanterface had just a very entertaining, if you're not him, expression of just like, are you kidding me? Shock.
Well, I mean, he got 30'd, right? Like he started that turn at 21 with a 12 health Amanthul up, right?
Yep.
And he got 30'd, and he clearly was not expecting that much damage to come out at that point. He was expecting nonsense, but he wasn't expecting, 16 twice coming out of a Trog Gem Tosser, which is fair.
And that's one of those things where it's like, okay, it's hard for Banter to know it's coming because he's already seen 1 Trog Gem Tosser. So it has to exactly be getting a second copy from the Dorian. And Gyu, meanwhile, is like, okay, well, if I'm going to be controlled the entire game, I need to win this with just burst damage. And, because you can use things like Summer Flower Child, which is targeted draw, so you're not going to hit the Trog, but you will pull out the Marin kind of thing.
Yeah, he did that to make sure he did that in the right order.
Very, cleverly crafted and kind of left Banter unsuspecting until it actually happened.
And Banter he still hadn't found the Hidonis. That was part of the problem. But he'd gotten a Lanessa off his Amanthul and was setting up an OTK of his own if he could just find the Hidonis, right? Because he knew, you still want to end the game against a Druid, right? Yeah.
Ideally, yes. Yeah. Because he would have been able to go, he still had the Lev Everlasting up, so he would have been able to go Lanessa, Hidonis, Springwater, and then the second Springwater would heal 8, and then flash heal, so that would have been 15 off the Hidonis. That wouldn't have been lethal, but it would have been a lot.
He had a Forge Creation Protocol in hand, so it probably wouldn't have been that hard to get the Hidonis. It's just that there was constantly stuff he had to address on Gyu's side of the board that he didn't really have the opportunity to go fishing.
Yeah, so that is, if you're facing a control deck, which Overheal kind of is, you still want to put pressure on them, even if they have clears, to just like force them to spend their time clearing instead of spend their time doing what they want to do, which in this case would be like find Hidonis and kill you. So, yeah, McBanterface did end up winning. He got out of groups, but did not win this particular game, even though I think it was well played. So, okay, the other ones that I have are much shorter. And I have as a title here, when to leave stuff up and use your health as a resource and when not to. So in the semifinal that McBanterface had against Maxibon, there was 2 games in a row where McBanterface could technically have cleared something, but it wasn't necessarily advised to do so because Maxibon would have needed very specific cards to win, to have lethal on the next turn, but Maxibon did, and had made the plays that he played, I think, in part to be like, I bet you won't clear this. Even if you do, I made you use your important stuff. If you don't, I just win. So a good read from Maxibon's perspective. But in one of these games, Banter was on Sonya Rogue, Maxibon was on Overheal Priest, and This was like a super quick game. So turn 1, Maxipon played a clergy. Banter cleared that clergy, including a Tarslick, backstab and Tarslick. So again, like we were just talking,
Very expensive.
Like, that's very expensive, but not necessarily wrong because, first of all, he did have a Tide Pool Pupil in hand when he did that. And secondly, clergies are really, really important for Overheal Priest. So, you know, this is kind of a race, and if Maximon can't find his pieces, then the Sonya Rogue's more likely to win that race. He already had like way more cards in hand, so.
And it's also worth mentioning that like the priest doesn't run that many minions, and so like there's not a lot of things that Backstab and Tarslick are going to interact with early, especially if like the hidden gems you just can't, right? Like you need like a Fan of Knives, and then you're talking that's 3 mana to be able to do like Tarslick Fan of Knives just to get rid of like hidden gems. So really, like the clergy's the most valuable thing that you're going to be able to clear with that combination of cards. Like Backstab, even with Tarslick, Backstab's not going to do enough against a Hauler or a Hedonist because it's been healed to full. And you don't really care about the Vol'jin or the Pip. So it's really the clergy's the only real target for those cards that early in the game anyway.
Yeah. And so it makes sense that, have those two things, clear it, still saved the coin, right? Whereas because he had the backstabs, I was able to save the coin, which was nice. So it didn't have to like Tarslick coin weapon or something like that. And certainly just damaging the clergy doesn't do anything. Like you have to actually kill it. So turn 2, not super eventful. Maximon played an Idol's Adoration and ended the turn. Banter played Prep Dubious Purchase just to draw. Again, you don't have that many minions you're trying to clear, and he did have a Tarslick in his Tide Pool Pupil still. So he's like, all right, if they, and you don't care that much as the Sonya Rogue if they play a Hauler. Sometimes you can get stuff on board like with Breakdance, but you care a lot less about a Hauler than most decks do. So like, okay, if he plays a Hauler and heals it, like whatever. Which indeed Maximon did play a Hauler, just played it out to have something to do on 3. Didn't heal it. Nothing. Banter, of course, just ignores it. And goes coin, minstrel, shadow step the minstrel. Turn 4, Maximon just tempos out a Hedonist and heals it with his free hero power from the Idol's Adoration, and then says your turn. Banter did not look thrilled when this came down. And then the real question was, does he clear it? So he top decked a Tarslick. He had another Tarslick in his now active Noggling. He had Grifta. He had 1 Breakdance. He could have done some kind of shenanigans with either like the Breakdance on the Pupil and Tarslick, or I think you could do the Tarslick he had just drawn, play the Pupil, Shadow Step the Pupil. Like if you really want to save the Breakdance, you could Shadow Step the Pupil because he had a Shadow Step, then play the next Tarslick from inside the Pupil onto the Hedonist, and you are setting up another Tarslick into the Pupil if you want that way. But all of these are not developing a race, and most of the ways he could clear, and maybe the ones he saw, like would have used the Breakdance, and you really like don't want to use Breakdance, if possible, as a Sonya Rogue, especially without it being in a Pupil.
Because at this point, coin has been spent. We are on 4 mana, right? This is all very early in the game.
Yeah.
So has not even had the opportunity to play the pirate to get its mini tries and do some real mana shenanigans. No Sonya in hand, right? So yeah, those breakdances early on are extremely valuable unless they're going to be put back in the Tide Pool Pupil. So I totally understand Banter not wanting to make use of a breakdance. Particularly considering Clergy got killed turn 1 and his opponent has just 3 cards in hand. It seems at face value better to just kind of put your biggest minion in play in Grifta and like your hardest thing to play and pick something that's going to help you.
Well, it's also relevant that like Rest in Peace is a card, right? So if he kills the Hedonist, there's nothing. Maximon might just bring it right back at full health, right? So like that's a risk of killing. Like there's a risk. It's not like killing it removes the threat. Killing it is also a threat, and it might actually make things worse. And it's worth noting that like the hand that Maxibon had, like Maxibon actually set this turn up really well, because what he had was 2 Holy Spring Waters, right? So like that
and a funnel cake for good measure,
and a funnel cake, right? So that's like actually the perfect setup, because you can go funnel cake or Holy Spring Water on the Hedonist into the funnel cake to get the extra mana that you need to be able to then spring water the other injured minion that was still injured that he hadn't healed, and then play the 1 mana bottle off of the other Holy Spring Water. So it really had to be like that combination of cards almost exactly in order for Banter to die there. And if Banter lives one more turn, then he's got a whole bunch of stuff he can do, and he probably is able to get back to the game. It just so happens that Maxibon was setting up against this specific hand into a lethal before Banter could really get started.
And it made sense for him to play it out, I think, even though, so if the Hedonist had been killed, Maxibon didn't have a Rest in Peace in hand.
Right.
So he wouldn't have had a lot to do if the Hedonist was killed. But it made sense to be like, let's find out if you can kill this, because it threatens lethal, but it's arguable whether McBanterface should kill it, especially since you've already seen a Tarslick played. And so it was a little bit of a risk on Maxibon's side, but he also would have done like nothing that turn if he didn't play the Hedonist, which is just letting, like, if Banter does kill the Hedonist, he's taking a turn off from looking for looking for Sonya, playing Grifta, the other things he wants to do. So at like the very worst case, you've cost Banter a turn. So it made sense to play it and just make Banter have it. And it made sense for Banter to kind of make Maxibon have it, right? He played the Grifta, he took the deal 6. He was clearly not thrilled about this situation from his face. But he's like, all right, your 3 cards in hand are probably not Spring Water, Funnel Cake, except they were Spring Water, Funnel Cake. He probably thought it was more likely. Usually if you tempo out a Hedonist, it's because what's in your hand is Rest in Peace.
Right. And then that's using up 3 of your 5 mana, and you're probably still not killing Banter the following turn.
So, yeah. So that was another unfortunate game for McBanterface, but I think a good example of sometimes something that doesn't work out wasn't necessarily a wrong play. And you have to think about, there can be opportunity costs or like things where what seems like the safe play is not always, like, there might be other risks associated there might be risks associated with clearing something as well as risks associated with not clearing it, I suppose is what I wanted to say. So thinking about what's most likely. And in a lot of these, we've been seeing really prioritizing preventing opponent draw, because the more cards they've drawn, the less it makes sense to try to make them have the card, because the more time they've had to draw the card that you want them to not have in their hand. So I think I'm going to skip this next one because it's been a while, and I want to give poor Banter a break here from so we'll have a game which he's not in.
Yeah, and this was maybe my favorite one from the finals between Maxibon and Gamer RBG in the hand buff mirror of all things.
Yes. So in the finals were Maxibon versus Gamer RBG. Maxibon took the first win on their second game. It was hand buff mirror, and we started with Maxibon on the play. They both had a Gold Panner and a Painter's Virtue in their opening hand. Gamer RBG actually had a choice between keeping the Instrument Tech and tossing the Painter's Virtue, or keeping the Painter's Virtue and tossing the Instrument Tech. And sometimes I think on our hand buff discussion, we were like, oh, keep the tech, toss the Painter's Virtue, because then you have another draw, basically. But in this case, because he had the Gold Panner in hand, that's a better turn to play. It's much more threatening for the opponent to have to kill it. It might draw you more cards. So it makes sense to toss the instrument tech because you already have Painter's Virtue and have a better turn to play with the gold panner. Was something that the casters pointed out that I think was a good read. And Gamer RBG actually kept the twin Ziliax that increases its attack. Because if you can get that out early, like on 6 or on 5, I guess you would coin out the Painter's Virtue. But if you get that out like on curve, you're the first one to get that out. That's really powerful in the mirror, especially if you've been buffing it the entire time. So they start the game. They both play gold panners. And then on 3, Maxibon plays Occult Neophyte.
What? But paladins don't play spells.
He could have played an Outfit Tailor on his own gold panner to clear Gamer RBG's gold panner. He could have played another gold panner of his own. He could have played a Grime Street Outfitter. But instead he plays the Cult Neophyte. Why? Specifically so that Gamer cannot coin out the weapon.
Yeah.
On 3.
And it's worth mentioning, this mirror is the rare mirror where the player on the coin is advantaged. Because both players want to play Painter's Virtue on 4, but the player who's on the coin, on 4 mana, but the player who's on the coin can do that in turn 3. So Maxibon being on the play, both of them having Painter's Virtue, was on the back foot. And so, and he didn't know that Gamer RVG had the weapon because he didn't play the instrument tech, but he saw that Gamer RVG kept 3 cards. What are you keeping if you're not keeping an instrument tech? Right. So it's pretty likely that he has the weapon he's going to coin it on for. So playing the Cult Neophyte on 3 flipped the script, because now Gamer RVG just plays whatever. I think he has to play the Outfit Tailor now to keep his panner on board and not lose that on the following turn. And then that allows Maxibon to then go in and kill the panner with the weapon anyway. And now he's the one who's buffing first. And all of a sudden, Gamer RVG is supposed to be favored in that position, is now in the back foot and scrambling. And also, by the way, he kept a 6 mana Ziliax that he's probably not going to be able to get down first.
Yeah, well, and, Donkey is pointing out, even if Gamer RBG didn't have the weapon to coin out, he also can't coin out Plushie to try to take advantage of this board either. And those are like his best turn 3 plays. So whatever he's got in his hand, right, he can't do it. And yeah, so that allows Maxibon to equip his own weapon, completely clear out the board really neatly on 4. Gamer RBG then has to spend his turn 4 just equipping the weapon, not developing board.
Mm-hmm.
Turn 5, Maxibon plays Grime Street Outfitter and Razor Scale, the one that says cards can't cost less than 2. Nothing costs less than 2 in Handbuff Paladin except the coin. So once again, Gamer RBG cannot coin out. In this case, what he really wanted to coin out was the Ziliax. But even if he hadn't had exactly Ziliax, it denies him that extra initiative of maybe like 2 minions that he could have gotten, maybe like a Grime Street coin plushie or something. There's a lot of good plays that he can't do now. And it's a 5/7 Razor Scale at this point. So it's like, it is a threatening minion on its own. And Maxibon had his own Ziliax in hand and knew that like if he can just prevent Gamer RBG from having a good turn, getting good control of the board, then he'll drop his own Ziliax first. And then what is Gamer RBG going to do about it? And that's exactly what happened. On 5, Gamer RBG played a Sync Azel, did manage to clear the Razor Scale with it, but then had no answer to 2, 8, 10, about to double their attack Ziliax.
Yeah. And this is just, it's so indicative of how that mirror goes, right? I mean, to circle back to the Neophyte play, right? Like, you make that play because if Gamer RBG doesn't have the weapon, you're going to win anyway.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be ahead in the buffing game. And if it does, you get to be the one with initiative. It often comes down to, barring things like plushie, whoever is the first one to play their minions that have gotten +2/+2 from the weapon, or in the case of Maxibon having the outfitter as well, like +2/+2 on the outfitter and then +3/+3 on the entire rest of the hand. So being able to shift that initiative game from, okay, keeping gamer off of the turn 3 weapon, and then also the big swing that could have been, all right, I'm not dealing with your stats, but I'll coin out my big Ziliax. Nope, not able to do that either because of the Razor Scale. So just, it is a straightforward deck, right? But a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think to utilize these tech cards that are not there for an all-minion deck, right?
Yeah.
But can still be used to mess with the coin.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a matter of like looking at like these cards. It's very easy to look at those cards and say, well, these are useless in this matchup. These are just dumb bodies. But but Maxibot was looking at that and seeing how he could squeeze even a marginal amount of value out of them, but that was enough to swing the game. And like that's kind of what a high level player is going to do, is kind of find these very marginal, very small incremental pieces of value, but that's enough to turn a game that was unfavored into a favored matchup.
Yeah, and I think that Gamer RBG played in response to it, like as well as he could. You know, on turn 5, he couldn't coin to 6, so he played the Sandcastle, and then left it in to clear the Razor Scale, and then left it in the location. He clearly thought for a second, like, should I coin? He could have, at that point, once he'd killed the Razor Scale, coined a Drone Deconstructor, buffed that to kill the extra 4/4 that was still on board, the 4/4 Grime Street. But then he would have had a Sandcastle left in minion form, not in ready location form. So to have the most ability to respond to whatever Maxibon did on the next turn, he wants that to like be able to give something rush, especially since he didn't have a plushie or anything like that in his hand. Because he knows that Maxibon is about to really get initiative on the board, so he wants to have like the most rush, the most ability to do something. He can use the location version of Sandcastle and then run Sandcastle into something, clear maybe 2 things that way. It's probably the best play in a bad situation. And then when those 2 Ziliacs come down,
right, Gamer plays his Ziliacs, is able to utilize Sandcastle to give one of them rush, which clears one of Maxibon's Ziliacs, keeping 12-1 for Gamer alongside 7-9 of the other half. And then uses the main body of the Sandcastle to trade off into the 4/4 Grime Street outfitter of Maxibon's. So Maxibon only has this 8-10 Ziliax half, which then doubles to a 16-10, and he happens to have the +6/+6 from an outfit tailor to win the game. So had it not been lethal for Maxibon there, Gamer had turned things around board-wise, right? Like, he puts himself in a very advantageous position. It's just that early difference of who had initiative and who had to just kind of keep up meant that he had already taken some chip damage and so died to this one remaining Ziliax half.
Yeah, so, you know, it's if you're in a bad situation, you couldn't do what you do. What is the next best thing to do? I think there's some really good play in this game, overall from both players. And there were a lot more really good instructive games in the Masters Tour, but I think we've probably spent enough time talking through games. But if you want to see a couple more suggestions for timestamps for games, you can check those out in the show notes. And there is, if you just want the silliest game, there's the one that I mentioned during Life and Ladder with the double Rainbow Decay versus Overheal Priest that had a million Primuses in it. So that was on day 1 at about the 2-hour mark. If you just want have 25 minutes and want to see a really silly game.
Well, that is going to do it for today. We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at Concede.com, where you can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us after live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. And write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede. And if you would like some CC swag, head over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Coin Concedes.
Well, I'm going to coin concede to everyone who has asked for me for coaching for this month. And I guess, Magasi, you're probably in the same boat. Like, my schedule is chaotic at best this month, with my big project going live in a week and a half. So I appreciate people being flexible with me, even though I don't have a ton of slots this month. And if this month isn't working, then I'll make it up. But it's I am doing my best to keep my eyes open as much as I can over the remainder of the next week and a half or so. So I appreciate everyone being very patient with me, and things will, knock on wood, improve in a couple of weeks, and I will hopefully be back to my normal schedule. But this is you don't do a project like this every day. So, and it has been way too long in the making, and I am going to be thrilled to be on the other side of it and not have to think about it anymore until I have to think about the next phase of it. So,
Well, yes, thank you also to my coaching people, and I was trying to get as many as I could in this month because it might be a little difficult next month. We'll post in the patron VIP room. Might end up needing to do some makeups or, switch around people who are doing the coaching. So we will figure that out. But thank you everyone for their flexibility on that. Also, Coin Concede to my new students for the fall, new and returning students. I have a lot of math classes, which is actually really nice. And because like science classes, you have to prep labs. English classes, you have to like prep readings. Math classes, it's like, all right, this is the next type of problem. Not that you're not prepping like ways to explain this type of problem, ways to demonstrate it, but it's just, if you've taught it before, much more straightforward than labs and stuff like that.
okay, kids, today we're going to learn how to count lethal damage.
When I have gamer kids in math classes, I'm actually so thrilled because I can be like game applications. They're not gamers. They don't care at all. Like if we're talking about probability and they're a gamer, I can be like, all right, so what's the chance that you're going to get your thing? And if they're not, I'm like, all right, we have to think of other ways. There's lots of, actually, probability is one of the easier ways to find examples in the real world for.
Mm-hmm.
But it is fun when students are share some of the interest, and they're always like, what, the teacher is into video games? I'm like, yeah, so are like half my coworkers.
So it's so you're playing XCOM and it says you have a 95% chance to hit. How many, when you press the button to shoot, how many times are you going to hit? The answer is always 0.
Yes, it is always 0. And thank you also to the casters. I wish we'd been able to also have Elle's wisdom in the casting, but I really appreciate being able to hear all of that, and I appreciated being able to borrow some insights for earlier. Tried to make sure to give those due credit when I was repeating from someone. Want to make sure that Sottle doesn't come in here being like, I said that first.
Well, I'm going to quick concede to Hat, who I've just, every once in a while I chat with him, but lately he's finally taking a vacation. So,
yay!
good job, Hat. You did it.
That means he's only posting about Hearthstone for like 8 hours a day instead of 16.
Yeah,
what that means.
Talk to you again after the 30th, please. Please don't work. Yeah, they're going to Italy. Sounds fun. I hope he has a great time, and I know he won't, but I hope he. Sorry, I'm sure he will have a good time. I know he won't keep himself from like doing some work that he shouldn't be doing. I feel like that's impossible. But Hopefully, Kite can, his wife can keep him honest.
There was a point where he posted something in the Coin Concede Discord, and like 3 people were like, "Hat, you're on vacation."
Go away.
And I'm sure none of them have been paid by his wife, but yeah, it's that's going to do it for this week. So until next time, keep calm and go get your golden packs. And if you see us on ladder, Coin Concede.
Coin Concede.
Coin Concede.
All life must end. I yield for now.
I concede.
Well fought.
I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend.
You win this time.
I choose death.